Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today I'm talking about the war on disinformation, because in the war on disinformation, labeling sources is a really good step, but is it enough? And we've got some new news on this front I think you guys are going to be really interested in. Now, this is coming from multiple sources, but we are talking about Twitter at the moment because Twitter has launched a crackdown on both Chinese and Russian government-linked news outlets on Thursday, meaning 2 days ago or so, labeling these sites, which include things like the People's Daily, China Daily, Global Times, as quote-unquote state-affiliated media, and apparently are preventing them from being recommended to users or otherwise amplified on Twitter. Now, this new categorization covers accounts from outlets like this in the United States, Britain, China, and Russia. Basically, what we are talking about here are the 5 permanent United Nations Security Council members, but this is only really going to apply to outlets from China and Russia, and here we go. Now, Jessica Herrera Flanagan, who is a public policy executive at Twitter, said that the goal of this initiative was to, and I quote, further protect the public conversation in an election year. Now, the new labels which appear on the home pages of the targeted accounts and basically above every tweet posted by them have also been added to the editors and prominent reporters of these outlets as well. Now, under these new rules, publicly funded outlets that have firewalls between financial revenue and editorial decisions will not be targeted. This is according to Twitter, and we'll get to that. And they point to 2 examples, which are the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, and NPR, or National Public Radio, here in the United States. Now, alongside the media labeling, which was also applied to Russia Today, or RT, and we have RT America here. I've been on that network as a commentator, just as a complete aside and full disclosure. I don't have a show there or anything, but I've been invited to talk about cybersecurity. Twitter also rolled out labeling for prominent government officials from all 5 of these countries. So, for example, President Donald Trump of the United States, his Twitter account was among these, while his personal account, at Real Donald Trump, which he uses just all the time, that's where we get most of these tweets from, was not actually labeled in that manner because that's his personal account. So I have a lot of thoughts on this. And I think that this is just a beyond important topic. But I think what separates something, or basically is the difference between government propaganda versus honest reporting, is basically what my notes mentioned above, plus more. I think that publicly funded outlets that have firewalls between financial revenue and editorial decisions that are not being targeted, I think that makes a lot of sense, because when we are talking about basically reporting from a source, whether it's, let's say, government-backed or independent, transparency and funding is one of the most important aspects. If you have funding that cannot be traced or quantified, for example, it makes the organization suspect by default, in the same way that, let's say, an openly far-right outlet or an openly far-left outlet is getting funding from the far-right or the far-left, is going to skew the editorial side of that outlet. Think of, like, let's say, Breitbart on the right, which is funded by, I believe it's the Mercers, which are on the right. The Breitbart is prone to hyperbolic headlines, but so is the Daily Kos on the left. And I can't remember off the top of my head who funds that one, but they're also prone to hyperbolic headlines. And so understanding those differences and understanding where that money comes from possibly understands where they are going to be slanted or how their editorial process or opinion articles are going to be written. I think it's also important as a step, though, and I think this is a good idea here, but we need to do more. We really need to do more. So while this is a good step, we need to do more. I think we should label all outlets from their country of origin. I think that's important, not just Russia, China. I think every country should basically say, hey, this is coming from the United States or Australia or Vietnam or wherever the reporting agency is. We need to also, as we are, let's say, looking at this on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, not just see the country of origin. I think we should be also disclosing the funding source of these outlets. And if we cannot figure out where the funding is, I think that should be stated as well. We have no idea who are funding these people, so heads up to you. Or this is being funded by this government, or this is being funded by this or that, or whatever it is. I think that's important. we should also, I think, very prominently on every social media platform, basically include links to education sites. Now, I'm not talking about the specific topic. So, there's been a raging debate in the United States about should you or should you not wear a mask, which I'm not even going to get into here. And I'm not talking about going to an educational site necessarily about wearing or not wearing a mask, although we are doing that on the social media platforms. I'm talking about linking continuously to basically sites that are educational on things like critical thinking, understanding confirmation bias, stuff like that. And speaking of confirmation bias, studies have shown that confirmation bias tends to override fact-checking, which is where state disinformation just basically thrives. So educating the public on being open-minded, understanding all sides of the argument, understanding, hey, I look at this from the right or I look at this from the left, is of paramount importance if we are going to actually combat this. And so I actually like the step Twitter has taken. I think they need to expand it in scope because, we can get propaganda from literally any country, including our own, here in the United States. And so I think it's important to label that. I think it's important to be transparent in where these places are getting funded. But I also think it's important that the public themselves are educating themselves on confirmation bias. I have the luxury oftentimes when I'm writing an article for like Forbes, for example, where they're going to call me out like, hey, this source is not good. Find a better source, find a more open source. And this kind of thing. And it's really forced me to basically look at things from both sides. And when I am compiling my notes or when I'm looking at stuff like this, I might crib from one article or the other, but I am trying to check multiple sources. And so I found this in US-based sources, but I also found this in the South China Daily News that also had their take on this. And so some of my notes are cribbed from them, when I found them accurate or not contradictory to other things. Same with the sources I found here in the United States for that, as well as in Europe. But this keeps us honest. This gives us all sides and perspectives, and I wish everybody would do things like this, but understanding that bias, understanding that transparency, I think is of paramount importance. And so I don't care if you 100% agree with the South China Daily News or the People's Daily or whatever it is, that's fine. Just understand where their interests lie in the same way we have to understand where any source's interests lie. I think that's an important distinction that we need to make in our heads. And so hopefully everybody will start doing that. And so that is your news / hopefully advice of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. No propaganda, I hope. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.